All right, let's get going. So welcome
Yeah.
again, once again to Automate series of webinars where we showcase what the Automate platform can do for you. This session is about one of the best advancements we have made in this platform in recent times. So we're going to talk about the Agentic Workflow Builder in action. And who better to explain it than our own CTO, Ranjit Padmanabhan. So we are going to have Ranjit take us away with how to build agentic workflows right into the platform, along with all the amazing things that you can already do with Automate. So without much ado, Ranjit, please take it away.
Yeah. Thanks, Ranga. And thanks to all of you for making the time. So this webinar is 30 minutes and it's going to be pretty packed with information. If we'll stay around for a few minutes after in case there are any additional questions, but let me jump right into it. So I'm going to start with a brief introduction about what we do at Automate, but the focus is on explaining agentic workflows in general, and to some extent how our platform enables you to create these using a low-code paradigm. So Automate is an enterprise workflow automation company. We've been around for a little over 5 years, and we have about 40 customers spread around different industries, different use cases. We say that we hyper automate enterprise workflows, and what this means, word hyper automation is not a technical term, it's more of a marketing term, which means that we enable people to create workflows that significantly enhance automation, have a lot of inbuilt intelligence and things like that. So when we approach the concept of agentic workflows, we are approaching it with an emphasis on the word workflows. So, and you'll see more of that as I speak about this topic. So let me start by, so this is the focus of the webinar. I'm going to walk you through, a particular agentic workflow use case, and I'll explain that use case in a little bit more detail. And we've always had this idea, and it's explicit in our name or implicit in our name, which is Automate. The idea that enterprises over time have the ability to become autonomous, and we've seen a pretty big leap in that direction with agentic workflows. So let me start by just describing what is a workflow. And I typed in this question into one of your favorite Chat GPT or Claude or whatever it is. And it says a workflow is a sequence of tasks, events, or activities that leads to a specific outcome. And, I'm sure you all knew that. Just to peel the onion a little bit, any workflow that you can think of broadly in the enterprise space consists of users who do tasks, services that provide automation, and kind of a glue business logic that ties all of this together. So then what is an agentic workflow? An agentic workflow is basically a workflow with the addition of agents. And the way I would describe them is agents are sort of services in the sense that they provide automation, but they can behave like users. So they are extremely capable services that have the ability to behave like actual users. And as you can see, if you're a business person or something like that, it gives you an ability to put automation into your workflows and come up with savings in terms of reducing the manual intervention of people into workflows and replacing them with agents or software. I'm going to skip this slide in the interest of time, but I'll just say one key point, which is that the underlying framework for our platform is based on business BPMN, which is a well-known standard, and it is the most powerful language to model workflows. And this is what enables us to do some of the things that you'll be seeing in the demo that I'm going to show you. So jumping right in, the demo I'm going to show you, while the title is Agent Consensus for Automated Approval of Change Requests in ServiceNow. That's certainly a mouthful, but let me break that down a little bit. So the business problem that we're trying to solve, as I've stated in the requirement, is to speed up and automate change request approvals. So just to give a little bit more depth there, as many of you might know, ServiceNow is an ITSM platform used by, many important companies, a very successful ServiceNow, very successful product. And it's used a lot in the area of IT processes. So change requests is a specific kind of IT request where someone asks, think of it as an enhancement. If you're a developer, it's like an enhancement where someone says, I want to open up a network for this, or I want to add a new switch here, or I want to give somebody permission to come in through an IP address, whatever it is. So we were approached by one of India's largest companies, which is a household name, to actually build an agentic workflow that would take these change requests and analyze them, and if they met a certain threshold of quality, automatically approve them. So what this means is that traditionally the way change requests come in is that they come into the workflow, and then there's a human. They might be an L1 an IT manager or someone like that, who reviews this change request, looks at it for completeness, for accuracy, for consistency, all of these kinds of characteristics, and then approves it or sends it back to the person who filed the change request saying, I need more information. This company received about 500 change requests a day because of the size of their IT infrastructure. And so it takes a large staff of IT managers to be able to review these change requests and then provide approval. And this results in the fact that change requests gets processed very slowly. The turnaround time is anywhere between 48 to 72 hours for approval. What we're trying to do is use agentic approach to improve this to hours, to minutes and hours in the best possible outcome. So the solution we have is to build adapters to ServiceNow and then incorporate them into an agentic workflow. So hopefully this the scope of the demo is clear. I will come back to this slide a little bit later, but you will see many of the features that you see listed here, which in my opinion are critical to have any reasonable agentic workflow product. And I will come back to this slide once I've completed the demo. So I'm going to jump into the demo now. And we will have room for questions at the end. So right now, what I'm going to do is just walk you through the demo. So what I'm showing you on your screen right now, I can increase the size of it, is a typical workflow. This is what the typical workflow looks like in our system. And in this case, it happens to be for a bank loan, a business loan. And so you have blocks that kind of show the steps in the workflow. These purple blocks designate where humans take some action, and these yellow blocks designate where some automated action is taking place. In the middle of all this, you have business logic. You have these conditional logic that says if A go in one direction, if B go in another direction. You have timers that say, that allow you to wait for a certain amount of time and things like that. So this is what a typical workflow looked like before agents came in. So what we've done is we've improved our platform to add, you can think of it as a new citizen into this framework of workflows. And these citizens are called agents. So let me show you a different workflow now, which corresponds to the demo that I'm going to show you today. So in this demo, the way that this demo works is that I'll be sitting in ServiceNow. I'm someone who has a change request, and I'm going to either insert or make an update to a change request. Anytime I do that, it triggers this particular workflow, and then this workflow goes through the following steps. It triggers, the workflow gets triggered with what we call a system ID, which designates, the specific change request. And then we go through a series of steps. The first one is, to fetch the details of the change request. The second one is to build a set of rules that say for this change request, these are the criteria that I'm going to use to evaluate the quality of this change request. And then we have 3 agents which are implemented in software, but traditionally you can think of them as having the role of an IT manager. So and most approval requests have only one IT manager. In this case, we have 3 of them who are in parallel going to review the quality of this change request. Based on that, they're going to issue their own individual analyses. And then we have a consensus agent that is going to look at all the analysis coming back. So if you think of these first level of agents as IT managers, this person could be an IT director who's looking at the analyses that are coming from the IT managers and then creating a consensus analysis, and then updating the change request back in ServiceNow. So the whole loop, it starts with ServiceNow with this workflow being triggered, and then goes back with an update being made to ServiceNow. So this is the workflow that I will be demonstrating to you. Before I get into that, let me kind of go a little bit into the anatomy of an agent. So in our system, you can create agents, and let me just look at one of them specifically. So this is how you configure an agent in our system. Now, most of you are familiar. If you're attending this talk, you're probably familiar with agents and APIs to all of these different large language models and things of that nature. In this case, we've got kind of a screen that allows you to configure a specific agent. So in this case, this is where you you publish the prompt. So the prompt is written here, and we have tools that can automatically generate prompts for you and all of that. But you write the prompt. Within every prompt, you have the ability to also populate stuff that content that is dynamic. So, for example, for each new change request, the details of that change request will be varying, and you want to have a way to dynamically embed those into the prompt, and that's what this provides. So this is kind of a variable notation for you to put this dynamic data into the change request. So this is one part of it. Here, you can actually select from a few different models that we have. And within these models, you can, a few different vendors or providers. And within each of these providers, you can select the appropriate model. You also have some of the more typical configurations that you can apply to these models. Most of you are probably familiar with temperature. Higher temperature means give much more room for creativity. Lower temperature means you make it more precise, and in the context of IT, you want to be a little bit more towards the precise side of things. Top P basically is a mechanism for shortlisting and creating out of a bunch of different options, picking the right option. It's just a way of again, similar to temperature, keeping the creativity of the agent limited or expanded. So you can configure those here. You can also add if you want any knowledge bases. So this is more like giving the agent a data source from which it can pick up data. So in this case, I've got a data source called CR rules, which I'll talk about. So you can add that as a knowledge base, and that becomes kind of a RAG-like architecture. And then you can generate your output in a couple of different ways. Generally, if you just want creative output, like you want an article or a poem or something like that, you would just generate plain text. In this case, we have the ability to generate structured output. So you can specify the names of your output, the names of the fields in your structure. And these LLMs actually have a way where you can actually, rather than generate plain text output, put your output into JSON, which is useful when you're passing this payload to maybe another automation step or something like that, where you need to provide structured data. We also have the ability to add tools into our agents. And what this means is that you can, let's say you want to call a particular API, let's say to check the weather or something like that. You can specify what that API looks like over here. So you would enter the tool name, specify the parameters of the tool, and so on. And then as the once the LLM comes back with the values, it will actually populate for you. It'll populate for you the function call that you need to make to this tool by automatically filling the parameters and giving you the ability to call that tool. So, many of you may be familiar with some of these things, but all of that is neatly captured in our agent builder screen. So we have a few different agents here. We have a few of them that have the role, kind of like I said, the role like an IT manager, and the consensus agent, which has the role of an IT director. And just to come back here for a second, one of the best practices I've seen in terms of writing prompts for these kinds of use cases is to specify the role and the goal and the output in kind of a structured way, and that gives the agent the ability to behave in a more predictable manner. So let's come back to the workflow. I'm going to go into ServiceNow now here. So this is what a ServiceNow screen looks like. And so this is a change request, and I'm going to trigger this workflow by making one change. I'm just going to change the name of the assignee or something like that. And then I'm going to hit update. So here I'm sitting on the ServiceNow side. Sorry, let me just. Okay. And I'm just going to restart this workflow. So I've hit an update on this node, and that update has gone into place, and this will trigger the workflow. So just to give you another view, our workflows can all be called with a REST endpoint. So any workflow that you design with our system can be called with a REST endpoint. So now I'm going to come to the side of the platform. So the way our workflows platform works is that this is the screen where you design them. And once you design them, you have a runtime environment where you deploy them. So I'm just going to hit refresh here. And you should see that the first task has appeared corresponding to what is called the CR sys ID. It's showing me the sys ID of the change request that was changed. And you'll see that this is the first step of this workflow. So now I'm just going to track this workflow and go through and just show you all the intermediate stages so that you get a better understanding of how this works. So I'll hit complete on this and wait a couple of seconds. The next step, just to walk you through, is that we're going to fetch this change request and I'm going to display the details. These purple blocks are stopping points where, for the purposes of the demo, I'm just going to stop and show you the intermediate results. So you get an idea of how this agentic workflow goes through. In production, we would normally take out many of these purple blocks and run it in a fully automated fashion. So when I hit reload over here, you'll see that a new UI or task, or we call it a task in our terminology, that shows me the data, the important data that has been pulled from the change request. I'm going to hit complete on this. And we're now going to move to the next stage where we have a rule builder. Now, this rule builder agent is actually using a RAG database to build the tools. So for that, think of this as being kind of an IT manual, and this is the IT manual that says when you want to approve a change request, depending on the field and the value and things like that, there are certain rules that must be observed. So I have used this IT manual as a knowledge base for this agent, so that when this agent runs, it's not pulling information out of the knowledge of the world. It's pulling information from this particular IT manual. So when I come back here,
and just a polite cue on the 20-minute mark.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I have another 5 minutes to go. Thank you. So now when I hit reload, I'm going to show you the intermediate rules that were created. And this tells me, this just shows me the source data, but it says these are the additional rules that, based on the content of this change request, were generated in real time based on the manual that was provided to the agent. I'm going to hit complete on this, and now we move kind of into the heavy lifting part of the process. This thing is called a parallel gateway. And what it does is take the rules, and it's going to parallelize three agents, each of whom is acting in the role of an IT manager, to look at both the details that came from the change request as well as the rules that were generated. And then based on this, each of these is going to produce an analysis. And then I'm going to come back and show you the analysis that was generated. So let me come back here and see if it's come back yet. Okay, so now I have all the three analyses that were generated, and let me just show you what they look like. So the Claude agent response, based on the data provided, gives me a pretty decent analysis of my change request. It tells me what the different fields were like, talks about consistency, talks about rule compliance against the rules that were generated, and overall, it's given me a score of 8 out of 10. We can look at the GPT response, which is a little more strict, I suppose. And this is actually giving me a score of 4. And the third one is from Gemini, Google's Gemini Flash agent, and it's given me a score of 6. So you'll see that there's kind of a spread of scores here. And so, now it's up to the consensus manager to figure out what to do with this. So I'm going to hit complete on this, and coming back to my flow, what happens is that after these 3 analyses are delivered by the IT managers, this agent in the role of an IT director is going to produce a consensus analysis of by combining the input that came from all of these IT managers. So this is the consensus analysis. And this is the result that came back. And in this case, I had set a threshold of just 6, and I guess it's looking for a score just above 6, but it says that the change request is not going to be approved because this doesn't meet the threshold. And 6, as you can see, is kind of the average of the 8, 4, and 6. Now, the way the consensus agent can work, you can do majority-based approach, or you can do an averaging-based approach, or whatever you choose. You can incorporate that intelligence into the agent. So you can say if 2 of the 3 are above 6, then let this be approved, whatever it is. But the important thing is that this has now generated a combined analysis of this change request. So now, if I go back to ServiceNow, and this is the change request that I started with, I'm going to go to my note section. So in my note section, I'm sitting in the US in California, so this is my local time, which is 9:46 p.m. when I made the change to the change request. Now I'm going to come back here and hit complete on this. And what then happens is that, as you can see from the workflow, the change request gets updated, and then I get a final card that shows me the result of this update. So coming back to this change request, you'll see that just now the data that was created by by the agentic workflow has now been pushed back into ServiceNow. So this is end-to-end. I start on ServiceNow, I get the analysis done by the agentic workflow, and this comes back into my ServiceNow environment. So I can just look at it and say, okay, I need to. It says there's a discrepancy between approval status and risk impact analysis, and I can go and make changes to all of those required fields to make this change request more compliant, thereby relieving the IT manager of having to deal with a whole queue of change requests. So this sort of completes the end-to-end description of the workflow. Like I said, I want to come back to this one slide that talks a little bit about what are some of the key features of any agentic workflow system. First one is you need dynamic prompts. You need the ability, whenever you create prompts, for that prompt to be influenced by the input. So obviously you need you'll be providing different kinds of input, and you need the ability to put variables and placeholders in your prompt that allow you to reflect that. Human in the loop is what I showed you, where a human is embedded in the workflow as a participant. And you can, and in this case, I was the human who was stopping the loop just to show you the data or to hit the complete button and things like that. Structured outputs is the ability to create a JSON payload as the output of the model, as opposed to just plain text. You can create a JSON payload with multiple fields and things like that, which is highly useful for sending to REST services and things of that nature. Human on the loop is a more interesting variant of human in the loop, where the person, where you escalate to a human only under certain conditions, like performance is bad, or something is failing, or something of that nature. So it's where the human is sort of optional, you might say. Model selection, as you saw, you can get models from multiple different vendors. Tool calling is the idea that you can, if you expose your tools to the agent will automatically fill the parameters of those functions only when you need to call them. So this gives you an ability. So let's say I create a tool that tells me the weather in Chennai or something like that. If I ask about the weather, it'll call that tool and it'll populate the name of the city as Chennai. But if I ask about, say, the price of bread, it won't call that particular service. So the LLM is smart about saying, you need the service. If so, I'll give you the parameters or not. Variable binding is what you saw through the course of the workflow. I can set certain values in one point in the workflow and then pass that variable through the rest of the workflow. And RAG grounding, as you saw, is this ability for you to go and pull information from outside manuals and outside data, and you can keep retuning it and retraining it as your data changes. So that's all I had. I know I went at pretty high speed through this, but hopefully it was useful. And maybe if you get the recording, you can watch it with a little bit more time. But that's all I had, Ranga. So I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Ranjit. And we already have a couple of questions come in. Would you want to take them right away?
Yeah, sure.
So the first one is, how much tweaking is really required for each agent or each of these agents that you mentioned?
Let me show you. So this is it's a very good question. So let's look at, for example, this rule builder agent. In the rule builder agent, so like I said, so this we also have the prompt allows you to create the instructions to the agent. And so the first place you start to tweak is in your prompt, and you want to express the instructions, very clear declarative statements and things like that. The second thing is, since we are dealing with the area of IT where it's important to be precise and not creative, you have to play around with this temperature and this top P measure so that you keep them relatively low, because you don't want you don't want the agent to be doing any thinking on your behalf. You want to give it kind of a very bounding box in terms of what sort of data it provides. So I would say the bulk of the time is generally spent on tweaking these three parameters. So I would say, it took me for each of these agents, it took me anywhere between 10 minutes to a couple of hours to tweak them to get the exact right output that I needed.
Awesome. We also have a couple of other questions come in, Ranjit. So one is, I think it just came in. Do you guys support decision traceability when it comes to agent tasks?
So decision trees for agents to perform certain tasks, is that what the question is?
That looks like it.
Okay.
Traceability. Suresh Kumar Gokrakonda.
Yeah.
Put that. Yeah.
Yeah. So at the moment, yeah, our decision tree is basically our workflow. So let me go back here. So I mean, think it's not quite a tree. It's more like a state machine or something like that. But what you can do is you can insert multiple points here that can collect data, collect information, and then do branching. So in this case, I've done a kind of distribute and merge parallel kind of tool. But if you want to create a decision tree that is more like a cyclic graph or something like that, you would put these nodes that have A or B type of business logic and create your decision tree. Hopefully that answered the question. Yeah.
Yeah, Suresh, please let us know if you have any follow-up questions on that. In the meanwhile, I'll take the last question that came in, which is, let's say my IT policies change. How do we update the workflow? I believe this is mapping those rules concepts to be able to map it to IT policies too.
Correct. Okay, so the way that this works, and let me show you the agent that does that. So in this case, coming back to the agent, it's the rule builder agent that does this. And in this case, it's using this ServiceNow CR rules as the source for its grounding and of basically for the source of the manual data. So this particular data is represented in a vector database. And we have another tool that allows you to create these vector databases. So what you would do is anytime you needed to do that, so this is the agent that creates that vector database. So I can just edit the agent, and then I can upload, I can remove this document, upload a new version of the document, generate another vector database. I mean, generate an updated vector database, and then this will automatically connect to that at runtime and use that information. So you can continuously update the information that is used by this, in your knowledge base as your IT manuals and policies change.
Great. So there's a follow-up question from Suresh. His question was more about what if the agent is working on an atomic task which is not part of the BPM? This goes back to the decision traceability question that Suresh asked earlier.
Okay. So now I will say one thing, that from the perspective of traceability and observability, we still have some improvements to make. I think right now the way we do it is that we can insert service tasks in here that can provide you with with updates on the traceability at the workflow level. Now, if you're asking about the traceability and observability of the behavior of a specific model, so in terms of explainability and things like that, we don't have that. We don't have that incorporated here. But if there are any agents that provide that kind of explainability, we will import them into our agent and make them visible. Right now, we don't support agent granularity of explainability. We only support that at the workflow level. So Suresh, hopefully that came closer to answering your question.
Yeah, he said that he got it.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, Ranjit. I believe that is the list of all the questions that we had so far, but since we are also over time, we'll encourage the people who would have any further questions to send it across as an email, and you should be also getting access to the recording shortly after. But thank you so much for making time for this session, and thank you so much, Ranjit, for taking us through this very insightful and feature-packed session. We'll be coming soon with more topics on these themes. So stay tuned for webinars from Automate once again. Thank you once again.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.